Yo, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video. As you can see by the title, today we're discussing what if Spider-Man replaced Batman in DC Comics. So essentially, what if Spider-Man was Gotham City's protector? How would he do against villains such as the Joker or just Batman's Rogues Gallery in general? I've recorded this video once before and I didn't really like the way it turned out, so I've decided to give it another try. The way I'm going to do this video is in a sort of story-like format. So instead of just comparing Spider-Man to Batman, I'm also going to be discussing how it would be like for Spider-Man to grow up in Gotham, what kind of changes to his character might take place, if Batman's villains will be able to break him, interesting stuff like that. But for now, this video is sort of more like a test run. I'm just gonna give the origin story of this new Peter Parker, and if it gets a lot of attention, then I can do more parts where we get more into the stuff like how is Peter gonna deal with these villains, stuff like that. Anyway, let's get right into it. So I've said that Batman doesn't exist and that Spider-Man sort of just replaces him, but that isn't entirely true. I've decided to keep the Wayne family still in existence, like an actual thing, because in every canon history of Gotham City, the Wayne family has some sort of large influence. So I've decided to kind of keep the events of Martha Wayne and Thomas Wayne's murder in Crime Alley. That still exists in this canon. But what happened to Bruce Wayne? Who knows? He definitely didn't become Batman because he doesn't exist. Batman doesn't exist. Or maybe he does. No, I'm joking, he doesn't. Since Batman doesn't exist in this canon, it would be fair to assume that many of his villains will not have actually turned to the dark side yet, because from my knowledge of the games, movies and shows and all of that, Batman did have like a large influence in creating many of his villains. So that's something I'm gonna keep in mind whilst exploring this what if scenario. I should also mention that my Gotham is going to be a merge of many different canons, partly because my inspiration comes from a lot of areas, like how it is in the comics, of course, the animated series, and then the Arkham games, which probably has like the best version of Gotham. But let's not get into that because I'm not going to be able to argue. So as for Spider-Man, his powers are going to remain the exact same, of course. He's still going to be the nephew of Uncle Ben and Aunt May, who took the boy in after the death of his parents. Or whatever happened to them. I'm not really too sure. Uncle Ben and Aunt May just live in Gotham City as opposed to New York in this canon. And with that, we can now get into the actual meat of this video. When Peter Parker is bitten by the radioactive spider that gives him his powers, he's 15 years old. In the new origin story that I'm giving him, he is also 15 years old and he's attending Gotham High, which is the only public high school that I can think of in Gotham, and essentially the only substitute for Midtown High. As for students who could be going to this high school, I'm not really too sure. The only person I have in mind is Barbara Gordon, of course. There could also be Artemis from the Young Justice series, but apart from that, I'm not really too sure. If anyone has any ideas of who could be going to this high school, let me know down in the comments and I'll see how I can fit that in. I do also have some notable teachers here, but I'm gonna save that for future episodes if that does happen. So like in the original story, Peter Parker is a social outcast. He's more interested in science, things like that. This is what leads him on one fateful evening to the grand opening of LexCorp, Gotham. So as I said before, the deaths of Martha and Thomas Wayne is still a canon event in this timeline, and their deaths is going to have an effect on their companies. So Wayne Enterprises, Wayne Tech, all of that domination that they had has definitely stagnated. And so this allows figures such as Lex Luthor to slither their way into the market. So since Bruce Wayne is, let's just say, missing, Wayne Enterprises is helmed by Lucius Fox and the board of directors, or however that works. So Lucius Fox is actually a very capable person. Bruce Wayne does typically hand over his company is too luscious to run as the acting CEO. But I don't think this would necessarily stop Lex Luthor. Let's just be real. I can imagine that expanding into Gotham is better for Lex because he's gonna be away from Superman, so there's gonna be no one to foil his plans, bruh. So essentially this science exhibit that Peter's headed to is Lex Luthor just showing off his technology to Gotham, just showing that he's the big boss in these parts. So continuing on, he arrives at LexCorp, and of course Lex isn't there for the opening. He wouldn't bother himself actually coming to Gotham because I feel like it just has that reputation. Gotham is just like that place that place. It's like Detroit. So there's lots of sciencey stuff on display. You can imagine what Lex has there. Probably like some kryptonite bomb, some kryptonite nuke. There's one field that LexCorp has only recently delved into, and it's genetic modification and cloning. Very interesting. It's very well known that in the comics Lex Luthor loves to clone stuff, particularly Kryptonian DNA, but obviously, don't you think he needs to practice on some stuff that's easier to clone? Maybe some genetically modified spiders? I don't think that's a stretch. Is that a stretch? Nah. But anyway, Peter's looking at the exhibit and he's very interested in it. Of course, Lex isn't going to give away all the information on the type of tests that they've conducted. So Peter's just going to have to infer much of it using his very intuitive brain, I can imagine. He finds himself fascinated by the research. He's just lost in his thoughts, as you can imagine, when suddenly, BAM! He's bitten on his hand. By reflex, he smacks whatever had bitten him and he shakes it off. He looks at his hand and a small red mark begins to swell. He looks for whatever had bitten him and he thinks he finds it, or well, its remains. He notices that the creature that had bitten him and the creatures within the tank bear a striking resemblance. He pieces it together and he realized that he just killed one of the spiders on display. How it escaped? Who knows? How did the original spider escape? Actually, in the original, it wasn't even a spider. It was a normal spider that got mutated and then it bit him. But we're saying that this spider was already genetically modified. And so he's like, damn! He quickly disposes of the evidence and he is out there, because knowing Lex Luthor, he would sue the hell out of Peter, especially because he's broke. I feel like he would just assert his dominance that way. So on the way home, he notices that his head is beginning to ache. Perhaps it's the stress, but then it becomes more pronounced until it becomes unbearable and he's just in the middle of the road, clutching his head in agony. A car swerves onto the street, headed in his direction. He snaps his head towards the car and leaps out the way with tremendous speed. I'm so funny. So GCPD cars are following behind the car and gunfire is just filling the air. Because this is Gotham. This ain't no happy place. This isn't New York anymore. So Peter's making a run for it and he's realizing that he's just pacing it, he's going so fast and he can't even handle it, and he trips and he falls over. So he's like, just what did that spider do to me? And he's kind of bracing on the wall. He's trying to pick himself up, but then he realizes that his hands are stuck to the wall. He pulls and he pulls and he can't free himself. And then he starts to think. The cogs start turning in his intuitive brain. Because obviously he lives in the DC universe, and this is a universe filled with probably many superheroes at this point. So he decides to test something out. He stretches his palms onto the wall and he finds that he's able to lift himself off the ground using only his hands that are attached to the wall. He slowly but surely figures out his new abilities. He finds that he can attach and release his grip. This discovery intrigues him as he slowly but surely lifts himself back up onto the wall. This time, he aligns his feet in a way that he's positioned in a crawl. And then Peter Parker begins to scale the wall like a spider. Boom, boom, boom. So with this confirmation of his newfound ability, he's just gassed. Like, he's very excited. Ideas begin to swell within his brain, but the most immediate thought is, how can I get paid for this? Here comes the money. In the origin story as well, Peter's very kind of, I'll be real, he's very arrogant. So a wrestler, I don't know any DC wrestlers. Well, there's Wildcat, is that his name? You know, from the JSA. But no way that he's gonna fight flipping Peter Parker. Are you crazy? So I've decided to just keep the wrestler the same name. So a wrestler, Crusher Hogan. He's holding exhibition matches and offering $300 for those who can last in a ring with him. Peter enters, deciding to put his abilities to that final test. And hey, he's also getting paid for this. But he decides to wear a mask just in case. So the day of the bout, Peter easily outmaneuvers and just crushes Crusher. You see what I did there? The fans love it. Easy money and a crowd of roaring fans. What more could a nerd like Peter ask for? And so he adopts the lifestyle of a wrestler under the pseudonym the Spider-Man. Boom. So the word quickly spreads about this scrawny freak who can throw around people 10 times his size. And this actually catches the attention of the Kingpin, Oswald Cobblepot. So in this canon, without Batman to stop him, Oswald Cobblepot takes over, becoming akin to Al Capone, where he's basically just invincible. Like, he's gonna be doing interviews with the media like he's some celebrity. So Peter begins to perform in matches paid for by the Penguin, and he does it without hesitation as the pay is 10 times better. See, Peter's about this money life. He's a bag chaser. But little does he know, he's slowly being inducted into the Cobblepot crime family. Is it a crime family? I'm not sure. I usually just see it as a bunch of goons, like it's a gang. But I'm gonna say crime family because that sounds way better. One night, Peter's Uncle Ben finds out about his dealings with the Penguin and confronts him about it. They argue and Uncle Ben storms off. He decides to blow off steam at his nightly gig for Cobblepot. But he overhears Cobblepot and his crew talking about a bank heist. All the while, the Penguin is leering at Peter. He offers him a spot on the heist. Peter refuses initially, but then he thinks about it. The money is very nice and, you know, he likes money. And he's also in costume, so what could go wrong? Now, before you say that Peter Parker would never get involved with something like this, you have to remember he's 15 years old, and also he hasn't learned the lesson yet that he needs to learn in order to become Spider-Man. And at this point in the story, in a original origin story, Peter was just an arrogant bastard. I'll be real, he was just annoying. Then obviously he gets that character growth. So me saying that he's gonna join this bank heist is actually pretty in character for him at this point in time. Obviously, if you disagree, let me know why, so I can correct my mistakes. With this slight moment of hesitation, Oswald is easily able to coerce the adult boy into joining them. During the heist, the Penguin obviously isn't there. He wouldn't join them. What is he gonna do? So things go smoothly until they exit the building. One Uncle Ben is at the wrong place at the wrong time, and the Penguin's goons shoot without hesitation. I should also say, because I just realized I didn't make it clear, this is all in like the same kind of night. So yeah. Anyway, so they shoot without hesitation. They leave him to bleed out on the street, and Peter's just leaping to his side, catching him in his arms. And on his dying breath, Uncle Ben utters the phrase, "With great power, there must also come great responsibility." Using his enhanced agility, Peter flees the scene before the police arrive, because obviously he was accessory to the crime. As he moves between the buildings, his anger is building and he begins to plan to kill Oswald Cobblepot. He descends on the gang's hideout and he mercilessly takes out each of the thugs until he reaches the Penguin himself. And he's beating the hell out of him at this point, I imagine, because Peter's strong as hell. But also Penguin can take a beating, because like if you imagine like Batman always
Let's talk about Riddler.
I'll tell you everything!
Thank you.
But anyway, he attempts to beat him to death, but then his mind lingers on his uncle's dying words. He looks around at the senseless violence and he breathes a sigh of relief when he notices that he hasn't killed anybody. The Penguin shifts and twists in Peter's grip, laughing and scorning the fool who tried to kill him. So, Spider-Man versus the Penguin, obviously this isn't a crazy matchup. Peter's faced worse rivals than the Penguin, and I feel like even Penguin's goons, like an inexperienced Spider-Man, is taking him out. Come on, let's just be real with ourselves right here. The Penguin's mocking him at this point, and he's like, "Do it, you bastard! I gave you everything, and this is how you pay me? I should be a voice actor." Oh my! Peter releases Cobblepot, who buckles onto the floor. "You think I'm gonna let you get away with this? You're done!" But Peter is calm and he just says, "You're going away for a long, long time." He motions around to the stacks of notes and heist plans scattered across the room. The invincible Penguin got sloppy and I could not be asked to write a way out of this. And later, Peter watches from afar as the GCPD close in on the hideout. He attends Uncle Ben's funeral with a grieving Aunt May. After she leaves, Peter makes a vow. I realize it now, that these powers are a gift, not something to abuse for fame or money. I just wish that perhaps I had realized that sooner, or maybe you would still be here. I want to honor your memory in the only way I know how, by protecting the city that you and May raised me in. It's time that somebody stepped up and did what's right. And so, a lean, silent figure slowly fades into the gathering darkness, aware at last that in this world, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. Boom! That's all I have for the origin story. I hope you guys did enjoy that, and obviously let me know if it was good, because I hope it was good, and I hope that my commentary wasn't annoying as well. Obviously I'm not a voice actor, I'm not a narrator, so but I do like to tell some stories. This obviously wasn't like wholeheartedly a story. It was more so just me slightly manipulating Peter's origin story to fit the idea of him growing up in Gotham. But yeah, that was the video. I hope you guys did enjoy that. If you did, like and subscribe and comment. And yeah, thank you all for watching. I've been your boy Polar, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.